The Justice Department has filed sealed criminal charges against a number of suspects in the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed the U.S. ambassador to Libya and 3 other Americans. Wall Street Journal's Devlin Barrett has the story in Washington. Devlin, good morning.
Good morning, Rolf. How are you?
I'm good. So who was charged?
Well, we know one of the people charged is a militia leader named Ahmed Abu Khattala. And he's always been a focus of the investigation, has been for a long time. And he has been granting interviews over the months since the attacks, basically denying any involvement in the attack, but admitting that he was there.
Okay. Now, where are these suspects? They're all in Libya, presumably?
Well, most of them are presumed to be in Libya, and that's really the challenge that this case presents. There is not a good government structure in Libya to help deliver these people to American officials. And because the Libyan government is viewed as fairly weak, there's a political or diplomatic reluctance to be too heavy-handed or big-footed in the country itself to just go hunting for these guys.
Now, what's the idea, really, to apprehend them there, bring them back to the United States, and charge them criminally in U.S. courts?
Well, that's really been part of the holdup here in terms of announcing public charges. What I've been told is there's been a significant back and forth internally about when to make charges public, how many charges to make public, because there isn't a good mechanism for getting these guys as things currently stand. There are options, but none of the options are particularly good or have a high percentage, is what's been described to me. So the risk of charging them is just making them more further aware that we're looking for them, but don't actually have the ability right now to reach out and touch them.
Now, Devlin, tell me if I'm mixing apples and oranges here. I may be, but if you recall, viewers recall back pre-9/11, and I'm not talking 9/11-2012, I'm talking about 9/11-2001, there were a lot of suspects on the radar of both the CIA and the FBI, and there was some fight back and forth about whether you charge terrorists criminally or you just take other measures that the CIA would take. Tell us about, is that something to think, are they thinking through this problem similarly?
They absolutely are, and the issue becomes, you're absolutely right that since 9/11 there's been a much more greater willingness on the part of the U.S. government to take forceful action, either through drones or armed effort by individuals, military operations, that sort of thing. And what you see in this case is you see sort of what happens when even those options aren't necessarily that productive. The view generally right now is that any sort of use of force inside Libya would be incredibly problematic for the government there, might create more problems than you solve, frankly, in the big picture. And so while things like drone attacks might have proven, I should say, in the government's view, very effective in Yemen, there's not really much consensus within the U.S. government counterterrorism world that anything like that would be able to get off the ground, one, or two, wouldn't create more problems than it solves.
Okay, but we should note here that this is something the U.S. government, the fact that they're charging people criminally, it's not something that they want out there, correct? Because they don't want to warn folks in Libya.
I think there are different points of view on this within the government. I think some folks would like to keep this under wraps for as long as possible. I think that's frankly why you see these charges are still under seal, in the hopes that they have a better shot at getting these people. There's other folks within the government, frankly, who say, look, it's not like Abu Khattala doesn't know that we're looking for him, we're hunting for him. He's been talking to the press about it for months. So we should show that we are making progress on this, and we should show that we have a viable case here. That's the other argument that's being made. And remember, all of this comes in a political backdrop out of Benghazi, where you've had this fight going on the Hill for months about whether the Obama administration did the right thing before, during, and after the attacks. And frankly, this whole issue of can you get these guys could end up being part of that same argument.
Devlin, we only got 10 seconds. If this guy's been giving interviews, does that mean he'll be easy to apprehend?
No, I mean, I think that's the challenge of Libya. I think the challenge of Libya is there's no good way to grab someone there right now that, again, might not create bigger problems than it solves.
But if journalists know where he is, the government can't figure it out?
I think the government probably can figure it out.
Okay.
In general terms and maybe specific terms.
All right. Well, we will see. Devlin Barrett in Washington, thanks so much.